Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. Oh hello, come on then. So I'm keeping it real today. It's early, I'm in my sweats, and I'm just wanting to sit down and have a real chat with you. I've been watching all of the conversations on TarotTube around deck Overwhelm and questioning, you know, buying habits and a kind of spiritual slump as well, and this kind of very deep and interesting conversation that is going on within our community. And I've really been enjoying listening to a number of people's opinions and ideas, and I've been percolating ideas. You know, every single video that I watch, more ideas come up, and I'm sort of examining my own experiences and thinking about what I feel about it and what I wanted to say. I've thought about making a video, but I didn't feel like I had my thoughts kind of all collected yet, and I still probably don't, but I feel prompted to speak now. I have made some notes to help keep me kind of clear, but I might be a bit rambly, so forgive me for that. There's like cat fur floating in the air. I also want to say before I get started that I have nothing but respect for everyone who speaks on this topic and for everyone's opinions and thoughts and feelings around their own practice, around their own tarot deck collecting and habits, and I want this to be a safe space for everybody. So I really hope to encourage that within the comments as well. This is not meant to upset anyone or undermine anyone at all, and I hope that that is clear from the way that I speak. I'm happy to engage in conversations around this as long as they are respectful and polite and friendly and safe. You know, I want to keep this safe and constructive in terms of conversation. So some of the videos that I want to mention are a couple of videos by Pappa Squirrel, one a while back about flex culture and tarot collecting, and another one more recently about feeling spiritually lost. Then a fantastic video by Mistress Ray that many people have seen and commented on, and a VR by Hazel Jane Tarot, and a recent video from Bonnie at Old Soul Mermaid as well. And Bonnie's video was the most recent one I've watched, and one that I really wanted to respond to very much. I very much enjoyed listening to everybody's opinions. And there is another conversation that I feel personally, for me, overlaps with this conversation, and that is that spiritual slump kind of conversation. And Hanni from Fierce and Pretty did a fantastic video a few weeks back about sort of feeling spiritually lost, and there were some fantastic VRs as well from Lennon Smith, from Manuela at Place of Stillness, and I think a couple of other people as well spoke on this topic, and I felt like that was very resonant for me as well, and I wanted to speak to that, and I wanted to address them together because I do feel like they kind of overlap like a Venn diagram. Like, I talk about my spiritual practice and my tarot and my witchcraft, and for me that's how I think about them. That doesn't mean that other people have to think about them too, and you might want to think about the conversation of deck Overwhelm but not really be interested in the spiritual conversation, and that's absolutely fine for you, but I will be addressing both here, and I just wanted to say that as well. So in response to Hanni's video a few weeks ago, when I first watched that video, I felt that it was very open and vulnerable and a really beautiful video, to be honest, to watch, and the VRs also have been very thought-provoking, and to me I think it did help me to consider some of the feelings that I've been processing recently. And I've always felt that I was a spiritual person, and I came to witchcraft before tarot. When I was about 11, I started practicing witchcraft, and I was about 17 when I discovered the tarot and started learning and playing with the tarot, and now I'm in my mid-30s. So it's been a bit of a cycle for me, but I've always considered myself to be a spiritual person, and I feel like I did have ups and downs during that journey, but never has my journey been so public and so open. I think when I was first discovering and learning about witchcraft, I had friends who I would practice with, and I spoke to some other friends about it, but it wasn't obviously open. The internet wasn't really a thing, and obviously the internet has grown really quickly. I remember those Angel Fire websites when I was in my teens, with Wicca and witchcraft kind of shoved together and all of that information in one, but never has it been so easy to access videos and information with other people's opinions, free classes, free lessons, free PDFs, free books, even if, you know, you're not going to buy lots of occult texts and such, there's so many ways that you can learn. But what also comes with that is a lot of misinformation. I mean, I have my own TikTok. I'm not labeling everyone on TikTok as giving misinformation, but obviously within the community it's fairly widely discussed that sometimes TikTok information is not very helpful, because misinformation can be spread and anyone can speak to a topic that they feel qualified to, or even if they don't feel qualified to, they can just speak to the topic and it can be taken as truth, and actually it's just one person's opinion and they may have only just learned about that last week. And that's fair enough if they want to do it, but I think that consuming the content, we have to take it with a pinch of salt. But also, for people who are creating content, there is a difference in the way you come to your practice. And I've noticed that since I started this channel and recently started my Instagram related to this channel, everything feels more open. And I don't mind that, because if people in my local area who don't really know that I'm a witch find out, then that's fine, really. I mean, I did used to worry about it, you know, but now it doesn't really bother me. But it's more so that it feels like a kind of pressure on myself not to always have a perfect kind of practice, but there's always stuff that I feel I want to do spiritually, magically, and practice, but there's not enough time. And I always get this feeling that there's not enough time. I have so many books that I want to read, I'm cracking through them and loving them, but I'm always thinking about the next thing I want to read, and that is overwhelming. And it's not so much just social media, but I do feel like there's this just cycle, and sometimes I need to step off it. I found myself in the last few weeks thinking, you know, I don't feel like a spiritual person because I just feel chaotic. Not that a spiritual person can't be chaotic, but I don't feel like I want to feel as my most spiritual, most centered self, you know, and I was kind of thinking, oh, I feel a bit like a fraud, you know, and I know I'm not, because I know I mean what I say and I mean what I do. I just needed to go right back. And you know what I did? I just put everything down and I went outside and I sat on the grass. I closed my eyes, I put my bare feet on the grass, and I just grounded, centered, and meditated. And I talk about that a lot on my channel, grounding practice being so important to me. But I'm also kind of a bit of a homebody. I love being outside, but I work from home, and if I don't have the kids to look after on a day, if they're being looked after because I'm working, then I could easily spend all day inside, and that's not good for me. So I literally have to make myself get up and go out. I have to motivate myself by saying, okay, you're going to go water the plants now, you're going to go step out, you're going to go into the garden, you're going to step outside. I have to think about it. I wish it was a little bit more innate in me, I think, because I love being outdoors, I love grounding in nature, and I work with herbs a lot. It feels like it should be second nature, but it doesn't always feel like that. And I think that part of that is that feeling of pressure. I have a job, I have a family to look after, and I have now 3 YouTube channels. One of them is sort of dormant, it's my old lifestyle channel. I've created a new lifestyle channel recently, which is very early days. I've got like 3 videos on there. And then there's this channel which I started at the end of last year, which I've been absolutely loving. So channels to keep up with, Instagram, and it just ends up feeling like quite a lot. And I know I've got to step back, but then there's always that fear of missing out thing. And so I'm being really transparent and being really honest and saying that, you know, I did come up against this. For the past few weeks I've been sort of grappling with this and thinking about this, and really, I mean, the only answer I had was just to put everything down and go outside, and that does the world of good for me. So I'm literally having to make sure I put that into my day, and that is the best thing for me. That is the most healthy thing for me. It doesn't mean that other people have to do that. It doesn't mean that other people will be feeling that way. But when it comes to that kind of spiritual slump, witchy slump, the feeling of the void or whatever, where are we going feeling, these are the kind of things that are coming up for me. And it's not so much that I'm not sure where to go. I have so many things that I want to study and want to look into, and I'm kind of dipping toes in all of them, but then realizing I can't give all my energy to all of these things, so I have to sort of focus down. So the things that I've actually spent most of my time focusing on this year are reading around folk witchcraft practices, history of tarot, and significantly astrology, and things like the Thoth Tarot I dipped my toe into as well, but I didn't really continue my studies. And so these things are going to take me years to study and grow into, and that's okay. There's the conversation around being a beginner or an advanced practitioner and all of that stuff, and I would not label myself as a beginner, but I also wouldn't label myself as advanced, and I don't think I would ever label myself as advanced, because I am just always learning, always learning. I think I will be learning for the rest of my life. So I think I'll always just be somewhere in the middle. I'm happy with that. But yeah, these are the things that did come up for me. So I wanted to address that here and say that that's okay. And obviously as well, on social media there are so many beautiful pictures, and something I shared on my Instagram recently was a reel of my sacred space, which is messy. I'm looking at it right now. It's quite messy, and that's because I do work on it. I move things around, I use the crystals, I burn incense, I burn candles, I create crystal grids, I actually work in this space. I have sticks and stones and twigs and roots and leaves and all over the place because I work with them every day. And that's natural, and it does not look like an Instagram picture of the perfect altar, you know, those beautiful things you see with all the crystals lined up and all the herbs. It does not look like that, and it doesn't have to look like that, but you know what, it's organic and it's real and it's mine, and that is the most magical, potent, amazing altar experience that it could be, I think. So that's the truth, that's the honest truth for me. And I kind of feel that coming back to the middle, as I said, like coming back to the centering, the grounding has really helped me. So that's where I'll leave that. I do think though that the social media burnout is a real thing, and it's something that I'm definitely susceptible to, so I'm watching that as well. But I think it's an ongoing thing. It's like one of those things, it's like you have to apply moisturizer every day. I think it's something you have to be really mindful of, and mindfulness is obviously a big thing for me, and I really think that it's something that I need to be very mindful of in my practice, especially now that my practice is open on YouTube, it's open on Instagram and on TikTok, and I am creating content for people as well. My goal is to inspire and to inform. I wouldn't as such call myself a teacher. I haven't got any courses, I haven't got any overly educational videos. It's more experience based, but I think that there are snippets of wisdom and education that I've learned over the years that I've put into practice, you know, personal gnosis, etc. So I think there's a mixture of educational and experiential content on my channels. So it can feel very personal, and it can also feel quite draining to be sharing that all the time. So coming back to the tarot conversation and thoughts and ideas around this, I really appreciated everybody's honesty and openness, and Mixtress Ray's video was just so vulnerable and candid, and I think a lot of people appreciated that, and I think a lot of people could probably resonate with some of those things that were coming up. I do feel that everybody has a right to their feelings and their thoughts, and I do feel that everybody has a right to express those feelings and thoughts about their own practice and about their own consumption, about their own debt consumption. And I believe that people should be able to discuss that as well, and to ask questions without being thrown under the bus. And I think it's natural, especially in the day and age that we live in. Materialism is a thing, you know, that's what makes the world go round. That's what earns people money. Social media is all about driving sales. That's what it's about. And we're on here sharing a passion for something. It's natural that when we're sharing decks, that's going to lead to people wanting to buy those decks. I don't believe that people should have to justify their own spending habits or their own deck collection. I don't believe that people should have to do that as long as they know for themselves that it's healthy. And even if they also think it's not healthy, I don't think they should have to announce that if they don't want to. That is their own personal feeling and relationship to work through, and that's something that they're responsible for. I think everybody knows that they're responsible for their own consumption. But within the conversation, obviously sometimes the feathers get ruffled when things are said, and that's understandable too. But I think what we have to remember is we need to look at ourselves first, and instead of projecting onto others, even if we come to a conclusion about our own spending and our own consumption, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the same for everybody else, and it doesn't mean that everybody else should have to do what we're doing or what we feel is right. It's a very, very personal thing, and I do think that everybody has the right to make those decisions for themselves in their practice without having people telling them this, that or the other, or projecting their thoughts and feelings onto them. I think there have also been a few instances where people have sort of been called out as having too many decks or too large of a collection, people who don't necessarily agree to being in the conversation, being brought into the conversation, and that, I don't think that that is exactly helpful for anybody, because again, it's not them discussing their own habits. I think it becomes problematic when people are projecting onto others and are bringing them into the conversation without them already being involved in the conversation. And I think everybody should have a right to their own space around this without being sort of dragged for having too many decks because other people think that, or they think that they're showing them off too much. I don't think that that's fair. I think another problematic aspect of this whole conversation has been that a number of times clinical terms have been used out of context, and that as well is difficult. I myself received a comment on my channel when I shared my decluttering altar space video where I showed my shelves and some of my space, and someone said that I look like a hoarder. I believe that that's also a clinical issue, that it's not nice for me, it's not nice for someone who struggles with that. It's just not helpful or respectful really in any way. I do have a lot of stuff. Yeah, a lot of the things that I have here in my practice are things that are very meaningful. Some of these things are antiques that I had when I was a child. Some of these things were family items. Some of these things were made by my father. And then, you know, I've got some things that I've purchased for myself for my own magical practice, and they're out because I use them. So yeah, it looks like a busy space, but classifying someone, that's not fair. And this idea as well that someone is a hoarder because they have a large collection, or a collection that someone thinks is too large, and then that person projecting that idea onto them that, you know, you're a hoarder or you've got too big of a collection or you're irresponsible. I mean, it's just completely unfair, and I don't think it's helpful for the conversation. The use of clinical terminology out of context comes up in my life, you know, occasionally, because I personally did suffer with OCD after my son was born, and I had some very, very scary, intrusive thoughts at one point that I felt like there was no way out. And I've never had a scarier time in my life. So when the term OCD is used with levity to describe someone who likes to have things tidy or neat, it does upset me. I know that obviously OCD is a broad spectrum, and there are people who suffer with OCD who do have those habits and those things that they want things neat and tidy, and it still is OCD clinically. But when it's thrown into a conversation with levity in that casual, humorous way, it is upsetting and it is hurtful, and I find it just deeply disturbing, because to me OCD was terrifying, and it was the closest I've ever been to complete oblivion, and I mean that in the most literal sense. So it's very important to me that these terms aren't used out of context, and I also feel that that can be sometimes people just not being aware or not educated on it, and that's something as well to bear in mind, that it may not be that someone has untoward intentions or anything, but it's just sort of said accidentally without awareness, and I think bringing awareness to people is a good thing. Also, you know, I feel the same. If I say something as well that isn't quite correct, I always ask to be informed and to have that, you know, understanding. I want to know. I never ever want to offend or upset people, because I want to be respectful and I want to understand these things. It's coming from someone who has had anxiety and depression, and as I mentioned, OCD in the past, postnatal depression, and also PTSD. I can understand how the use of some of these clinical terms can be really, really upsetting for others. So definitely something to bear in mind when we're talking about this topic. So there's some things that Bonnie touched on in her video that I thought were just so important to raise and discuss, and that was responsibility. I do believe as content creators we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility obviously to ourselves as deck buyers and content consumers as well, but we also have a responsibility as creators, I think, to be as transparent as possible, as far as we can, as far as we are comfortable with being. Doesn't mean we have to come on here and air all of our personal struggles or anything, but you know, as Bonnie mentioned, to be honest, when we are working with a deck creator, anything like that, or I have an Amazon affiliates link, so I use that, I will state in brackets that these are affiliate links from Amazon. I mean, that's very important, and it's been important on YouTube for years. I've been lucky enough to receive a free deck, and that was the Lux X Umbra Tarot. I was approached by the creator. I created a walkthrough and a first impressions video, and I was fully transparent about the fact that I was gifted it and approached by them, and it was a lovely experience. But like Bonnie said, I don't have people banging down my door, you know, sending me free decks. As part of my old job, I was actually sent a deck once, and it was Messages from the Mermaids. That deck creator lives in the southwest of England, so I was lucky enough to receive that from the PR, and that was a couple of years ago. That was before I created my channel. So I think that's it. I think it's 2 decks that I've received from PR and from a creator. I think from that perspective it is important to be transparent. And I do think that with the nature of discussing tarot, something we're all passionate about, there is going to naturally be people who will want to purchase those tarot decks. I think that that is fine. I think that's really nice. That's enjoyable. As someone who's been at both ends of that, I think that's lovely. I also really enjoy anti-hauls and declutter videos, and you know, giving away deck videos, and Lisa Pappas and her Say Yes to the Deck video. I think all of these series are lovely, and I really enjoy them. And I think the conversation around this is really healthy as well. I think it's indicative of a healthy community and a healthy overall kind of relationship to buying and acquiring decks. The topic of flex culture came up on Pappa Squirrel's channel, and I can see where he's coming from with that. It's a really interesting thing to discuss. I think it's mostly agreed upon within the community that having hundreds of decks does not make you a better reader. To be a tarot reader, you need 1 deck, and that is it. And to be a good tarot reader, you need 1 deck, and that is it. And the rest of the decks are just, you know, a choice that each reader can make. I know for me that the art makes me very happy, and having that art, and also having decks to go to for different seasons and different astrological moments, that is really lovely, and that is something that I really enjoy. And having these decks, I know I have a lot of decks and I love them, and there are only 1 or 2 that I would like to remove from my collection. The rest I'm perfectly happy with. I have slowed down my deck buying mostly because of space and because of budget. My husband and I are moving house, and obviously it was discussed by other people as well during lockdown. We weren't doing other things, so there was more expendable budget, and I think that a lot of people probably had that, and that I think is fine as long as it's healthy for somebody's budget again. And that comes back to what Bonnie was talking about personal responsibility. I'm hopscotching all over the place, I'm so sorry. I don't think I fully finished the point I made about responsibility. So going back to that, it is down to the person who is consuming the content and buying decks to look at their own financial position and their own budget, and to buy decks or not buy decks accordingly. And you know, that is something that each person needs to consider for themselves, just as a content creator needs to do the same. No one can tell anyone else what is right for them, and when people want to discuss candidly their experiences with that, I think that is so admirable and really helpful for a lot of people. I think it's really healthy to be discussing that. I think it really helps others as well. I think probably everybody has things that they like to buy. For me, I definitely indulged in fashion and beauty and all of these things over the years. I worked in fashion, I worked in content creation and magazines and such, so I was writing about these things every day, and so it was kind of natural that that's where I would spend money, and that's where I would enjoy spending money. And on tarot decks, that is something that I love, so that's somewhere I spend money, as I spend money on books, and that's something that I budget for. Yes, there have definitely been times when I've bought too much, just like you go on a shopping spree, but just like you would never turn around to a stranger in a shop and say, you've already got too many dresses in your wardrobe, you don't need to buy that dress. I don't think that in the tarot community we should do that to people about decks either. Not that I'm saying that anybody has, but you know, it's weird because it feels like if people are sharing their decks online, then they're putting themselves out there, and then they should be prepared to have people tell them, you shouldn't be buying that deck. But that's not necessarily fair or constructive, I don't think. You know, we're here, content creators are here to share the decks that we have and the passion around those decks and how we work with them. Some people share obviously readings with them, you know, pick a card readings and such. We're all here to share similar kinds of content, but different kinds of content, and it's beautiful and it's lovely. But if it's not healthy for you to consume it, just as Bonnie said, it's time to remove yourself just for a little bit of time, to step away. And if you don't want to disengage yourself completely, you can look to channels who have spoken to the topic of depth years, for instance, or no buy years. There's so much lovely content out there around this area, and there are other people that you can discuss this with within the community to get moral support, to get tips from. There are fantastic tips on how to do this, how to set yourself a budget and guidelines, and you know, things like turning off the apps like the eBay app and the Amazon app and switching them off completely, so you don't have that option to just go into the app and look for whatever it is that you're looking for. Instead, if you like something, you can write it down in a little book or write it down on the notes section of your phone and keep a list of what you like, so that when you have a birthday or a special occasion, or you are coming out of your no buy year, or you have a chance to treat yourself, or someone's buying you a present, then you can literally look to that list and say, oh, this is something that I would like. That's something that you can do. But I don't think that necessarily turning around and telling content creators that they can't share their decks is fair. And again, I'm not directing that to anyone in particular. But if there is that compulsion to type into the comments box on somebody's channel that, oh, you have too many decks, just take a step back and think about it. Potentially it's an opportunity to turn it around onto yourself, because if you're having those thoughts, it's, you know, potentially something that you need to look into if you are safe to do that. But also potentially just coming away from social media is something that would support you. Just as I realized that for me, as someone who has a spiritual practice and now creates content around spirituality, witchcraft, tarot for social media, that I need a break sometimes, and coming back to the real basic techniques. Even if I have something, a ritual that is really important for me to do for a Sabbath, or to discuss something with the deity I work with, or to work a spell that is really, really important, even if I've got all that to do, if I've got everything going on in my head and I cannot focus, I need to just step away. I need to step away from social media, and I need to step outside and be on the grass in the earth. That's what I need. I need my hands in the earth, my feet on the earth, and that's where I feel the most grounded, the most centered. That's where I feel the most content. And it comes back to contentment as well, because I guess we are creatures that desire things, and I think that obviously social media capitalizes on that, and everything is monetized on social media. And Bonnie said it really, really eloquently, that, you know, there's something, whatever it is that is sort of your weak spot, there's something on social media that will grab you, and they'll try and sell something to you to solve that problem. Oh, you don't have this in your practice, then it's not, you know, and it's that messaging. If you don't have this in your practice, oh, you need this really, really beautiful thing in your practice, otherwise your practice isn't real. And it's not that they're actually saying that, but that's what the subliminal messaging is, and it's actually really dangerous. And I do think that coming away from social media is good for everybody at certain points, and you need to know yourself. Again, it comes back to mindfulness, and it does come back to responsibility. We need to be responsible for our own habits and our own spending and our own debt collecting. That is healthy for us to do and to establish and to nurture and to work on. Coming back again to the flex culture point that Pappa Squirrel mentioned, I do see there's an element of that. But as I said, I think creators are sharing a passion around something. They're sharing their techniques and tips. They're sharing the decks that they connect with the most, and it's a personal relationship with those decks with them. And they are sharing real wisdom, real nuggets of gold, and that is beautiful. And I don't think it comes from the same place as it comes from when a massive YouTuber has a huge beautiful closet and they're standing there showing off all of their designer bags. I don't think it's the same. It's the spirit with which something is done you know, I'm not saying as well that those people who are holding up all the bags don't have passion for those bags. I have a few designer bags, I have passion for those bags, and I like to show my friends. I've definitely shown my Chloe bag, for instance, on my lifestyle channel, because I just have a few designer bags and I find that they're really versatile and really beautiful, and I value that. But I think there's a difference between sharing something you love and you're passionate about and that actually has value for you, and sharing a massive closet of things that there are so many of them that are all so expensive that most people can't attain, and you can't really enjoy any of them because there are so many of them. I think there's a difference between sharing something that is artistic as well, like tarot, and sharing a closet full of clothes that you're not wearing that are just hanging in a beautiful space looking pretty. I think there's a difference. Potentially some people would disagree with me, but that is my feeling, that it comes from a different place than when those massive YouTubers do show off. And it's the spirit and manner with which these things are done as well. When you watch those videos, it is about flexing. And I don't think that that's the case so much with TarotTube, but I can see why that comparison was made, and I also think it's a really, really valid thing to discuss and consider when we are looking at decks and sharing our decks. I think for me, the tarot decks make me happy. There was no point where I thought I need to get a deck because it's going to look great on my shelf and it's another deck that I can then show off and talk about. I buy decks because I love the art, and I think I'm going to be able to work with them in my practice in a really, really beautiful and nourishing way, in a new way as well. I buy decks for specific kinds of readings and to do different kinds of work, and that is valuable for me. That is why I have acquired certain decks. I definitely think it is a lot about the art for me, as well as the reading of the tarot. I'm sorry, there are some industrial noises happening outside. We get some gardening. I do think that a lot of people really appreciate the art, and I do think you can be a tarot reader and a tarot collector at the same time. You can be just a tarot collector if you like, and not even a tarot reader if you appreciate the art, and you can be a tarot reader and not a tarot collector, and all of these things are fine, and it's for the person to decide. And again, that comes back to personal responsibility, and I think we all have to be aware of that and really mindful of when our thoughts might be in a way projecting onto others, you know, which I don't think is helpful for anybody. So I think it's just about, yeah, coming back to a place of mindfulness, a place of contentment, and a place where we are really, really responsible for our own spending and our own consumption of social media, because we need to look after ourselves. We really need to take care of ourselves. And yes, we know that social media is going to be pushing these things at us, but I think the individual creators on TarotTube, for the most part, have really, really good intentions to be sharing information and to be sharing joy and passion and love for a topic with their audiences. And that's genuinely the case, I think, for most people. It's certainly the case for me, that I want to be sharing joy and techniques and tips and ideas and experiences with people, not that I want to be peddling a lot of stuff to somebody. The affiliate links are helpful because it's a lot of energy and effort to create content, and lots of people do it for free. I have been creating videos now for 3 years for free, and I think I've received maybe about £3 worth of credit on Amazon as a result of the affiliate links that I have over that period of time. I didn't ever start YouTube thinking I'm going to become a famous YouTuber with lots and lots of cash. That is not the thing. I started YouTube because I had some stuff that I wanted to say, because I worked in publishing and writing and content creation previously. I had passion around things, and I had a voice, and I wanted to share it, and I knew that I'd be comfortable on camera, and I thought I would go for it because it was something I wanted to do. And I kept going because I loved it. Like, I love this experience, and I'm not going to stop anytime soon. I can't promise that I'll always be doing this when I'm older, but for now I want to continue doing this because it makes me happy and it brings me joy. And to be able to have an affiliate link just helps a little bit with that energetic exchange, to have a little bit of something to support. And then to receive an offer from a deck creator to review a deck is a really, really lovely thing as well. I believe as well that me doing that, or anyone else doing that, using affiliate links, having a Patreon, having a Ko-fi, I have a Buy Me a Coffee page now, which is always linked below. Like, having those, I don't think invalidates the information, the passion, the experience, the wisdom, the joy that a content creator has for something that they are sharing. And if a person coming to that media does not enjoy or appreciate that, that is completely fine, and they are free to click off. And I think that that has to be down to that person. It has to be about them being mindful, about them being conscious of what they're consuming, and about them being connected to what is right for them, and then saying, actually, you know what, this is not healthy for me, I'm switching off. And then they switch off. And yeah, I think it comes back down to conscious awareness, mindfulness, contentedness, and personal responsibility. I think that that's definitely what Bonnie was outlining in her video, and I really appreciated that. And I feel like there are probably more things that will come up, more thoughts that will come up for me. There are definitely probably thoughts that come up for other people. I really, really welcome thoughts in the comments box below. As I said at the start, please keep them really respectful and polite and friendly. Let's keep this space safe. I want it to be safe for everybody. And, you know, if you feel like you want to have a conversation, please do. Thank you so much for listening. If you're still here, that's amazing. Thank you. I really, really do appreciate you. I really appreciate 1,000 subscribers, and I really, really appreciate your likes and your comments. I may not be able to comment back straight away, but I always do get to the comments, even if it's a few weeks later. So yeah, do know that I do read them all. If you'd like to make a video response to my video or to the conversation in general, I'd also love to see more thoughts on this topic. I think it's really healthy to discuss, as I said. Thank you again so much for joining me. I hope that this has been interesting or nourishing or supportive or helpful or of value to you in your journey where you are right now. If you did get value from the video, please do like the video below, click the thumbs up button, share it with anyone as well who you think would be interested in this conversation. If you'd like to follow me on social media, the links are below, and usually at the beginning and the end of the channel. I have an Instagram, a TikTok, and I also have a buy me a coffee page if you'd like to buy me a coffee as a tip for the content I create here. But of course, there's absolutely no obligation to do this. I know it's not possible for many people, but it is an option if that is something that you would like to do. But just know that you being here, commenting, liking, subscribing, watching is incredible, and I so appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you'd like to see more from me around tarot, magic, witchcraft, spirituality, then please do think about subscribing, and don't forget to hit that little bell notification, because that's how YouTube will let you know when I create videos like this. So with all that said, thank you again so much for joining me. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Stay safe and well, and I look forward to seeing you in another video really soon. Take care. Bye.